شلامانوخون قشقانت مغبت يوداعت شميرن أنا ريبيكا سايمون بتايق أموخون من Assyrian Convention جو أورلاندو فلوريدا شي تترقل في إسري أربا أرخن وديو أمان إلخا نقوة رابا جابورتا رابا popular ناش كمر ديالون ما يقد مرزانو لكاف خدية چون كده اتلخ هذا sense of humor رابا سباي وديو منن إلى خانقوة قد شمت performing شمو إلى رامينا rated رامينا رابا بشنتي لخ ويد بسمت قد قبلا لخ أتيت وديو منن همزمت أخنا همزمتن وديو بدوية بإنجليز
انزحمت يا بويا
of course أختي بايخ شارخ لبي لشان أتوراي قد قشقان المغبياتي قد آتن أتوراي زكاتا
بخلوتو لي تلالي همزومة سورة سبب خدش زحمة إلى طلالي دمشخن خبرانة قد بين مبرمنو خن بغزايتو داخلي بخلاطة already يمي ليلة لخا قد مدرسة لي so همزمة بليشانة English إن بس مالوخن لدو قوثو لإلي right لدو قوثو لإلي أنا بخشاون سورة دي you know spy I'm about to code switch into Spanish más o menos إن بيتو برجوثو فيديوز دي سم برجو فيديوز يوم رابا سورة إلى همزومة تاما إنا قادية interview بداية همزمتها وسبقتها همزمة بليشانة English سبب غيرك ليبان بشرابة سورة
رامينا at an introduction لازم خلالة you don't need introduction you're very well known among the Assyrian people and in the Assyrian community because of your very funny skits. Your humor is unbelievable. I'm a fan of yours.
Thank you.
And can you tell me, well, I rate you as one of the highest Assyrian female comedians, and kids and families rate you as a PG or G comedian. Why did you go with the name RinaRated? What was your purpose in that?
Well, it's funny because I watched the Keeping Up with the Kardashians midi. Let's do Keeping Up with the O's, the OD shows. My family didn't want to be in my videos, so I had to change it up a little bit. What about we're trying to do alliteration, something R and R, right? Ramina and something else. We just kept going till she came up. She said, what about RinaRated? And I thought, okay, good idea. Maybe I'll do videos where I rate things. But that's not how it started. I think one of my first videos was inspired by one of my other friends. The mom calls Bruna, Ikit Bruni. Okay, shqul danoch, brahatuthoch. And then she calls the daughter, Eket, shamtebeth idea, right? That double standard. So it started with that, and I was a part of the youth at the time. The youth kids were like, oh my God, that was so funny, do more. So now I'm doing relatable Assyrian moments. It wasn't rating things at all. The name just kind of stuck because that's what we went with.
You know, that name, it's interesting that I'm glad you did that name because it brings along with it a question mark, a mystery. Why is that? Who's rating her? Is she rating herself? So in my mind, it brings out questions, which is really interesting. Ramina, do you feel like you inherited your talents from someone in the family, or is it unique to you?
You know what? I will credit people in my family because I have a lot of funny family members. My aunt is hilarious. My dad is hilarious. He's a great storyteller. So I will say I think I take after him in that sense. My friends are funny. I mean, I feel like I've always been that funny person. Abku madrasa, they would say, oh, atiraba makhki kantet. But I feel like I picked up maybe the storytelling aspect from my dad. But yeah, I was always labeled the class clown, and I think maybe it was a way to hide insecurities, you know, to be the one to make the joke first, but it just kind of stuck. It's been my personality. And I've always been my mom says, Lishana khrikhele, all my life, right? So I've always had a big mouth, a lot to say. And yeah, I think I have a good sense of humor, but I do say there are members in my family that are hilarious, I think funnier than me. My brother, I think, is funnier than me. So maybe it runs in the family.
Maybe it runs in the family. Do you think humor can be taught?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's different forms of humor too. Some people might not be funny to others. Some people have like a dry sense of humor, but some people will study it and know how to land, you know, a punchline or say a joke. So I think it could, but I think it's easy to spot that. I think it's easy to see, oh, that person's just naturally funny, or that person's, maybe it's a little scripted. So
Are you trying to be funny, or this is just who you are, how you are, you come across funny, but to yourself, you're just your usual Ramina?
yeah. I think I'm just a funny person in general. And it's funny you ask this because when I started the stand-up comedy, Khay Mughbarabi in Detroit, he said, come and do stand-up. I said, I've never done stand-up before. He said, let's do a meet and greet. I said, okay, I can do that, meet the fans, that's fun. He calls me 2 days later, he says, I sold 400 tickets. You need to get on the mic, you need to make people laugh. And that was my first time. I was like, Ma'odan, I've never done this before. So I thought, okay, Yom comes to me like this. That's like my grandmother, Wardiya. It's all, I picked it up, I learned it, right? That's taught behavior. I've seen it happen all my life. So I said, okay, brahatili as Yom. So I'll go out and I'll interact with the crowd as Yom. And that's what I did for the very first time. But I was nervous as myself that I wouldn't be funny. So now when I go out as myself, وأبقى نخراية ودلي comedy shows, بزداين because قلت تخمنتي like تخمون بلكي هنتي سورايا يحكي jokes maybe I'm only funny to Assyrians. So I did an opening for our Paul Ilya, another Assyrian comedian.
Yes.
And it was, دكتة نخراية خوارة. And I got up there and I said jokes and they were laughing. So I was like, okay, I think I'm naturally funny. Like, I think, I do bring that sense of humor. It's not just for Assyrians, but for a wider demographic too.
So are you still insecure? Were you insecure about your being, about your humor or being funny or being accepted?
No, I don't think I was ever insecure. That first show in Detroit, I did an assessment. I was like, okay, feel yourself. How do you feel? Aqlati birgadewa, because I was nervous. It was a lot of people, first time. I didn't know how they would take it, but I was never insecure because I know it's weird. I'm a procrastinator, but I think internally I know I'm funny. I've always been around my friends and family, and there's a sense of security too. I know ananashi maghbeli, so I'm going to be received well. And I think when I'm in that comfort, I perform really well. I'm never insecure because when I'm on the spot, it's sink or swim, and I'm always bischaya. Like in that moment, it's you got to act. I put the act on and it gets received very well. So I don't feel insecure in the sense that I don't think I can make people laugh. I think the laughs are going to be there. It's always just little pre-show jitters.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course. And sometimes those jitters give you the adrenaline
Yes.
to go forward.
Absolutely.
And of course, the reaction of the audience just propels you even more.
And I was بقراية كثاوة like comedy. I was trying to study it as an art form. And one of the things that this author said was, let the crowd see that you're nervous. Humanize yourself, because they'll feed off of that and it becomes more relatable. So
of course.
At this point, I've just let it go. And are you going to be at the comedy show
tomorrow? Of course.
So you'll see what I mean by,
Yes.
I'll laugh at myself. I'll get sidetracked with people. They love it. It's not something that has to be so rigid.
When I watch you, especially your very famous character, the mother who is a traditional Assyrian woman, she's biased towards her daughter and son.
Absolutely.
And she is this working class, very frank, open mother, and she's very judgmental, but just funny, and you just love her, even though she's a tiny bit flawed.
Right.
Where do you get the characterization and the nuances of character? You are very detailed in your portrayal of characters. Where do you get your inspiration and are the nuances of the character rehearsed, or they come to you automatically?
It comes to me. Yom, I say, when people first started meeting my mom, I get shows like around the States, they'd say, be accent. Hamzima like English, perfectly fine. Because America, so she has no accent. They were like, what is going on? I said, guys, don't worry. The accent that Yom has, that's my grandma Wardiya. Because and so I think just studying people's facial expressions, and then I dramatize it, I exaggerate it. So my grandma, she'll go like this a lot, and I'll make Yom's face like this, like that. So it's just, you just study facial expressions and you just get into it. And I feel like I've always been really good at impersonating people or doing impressions. It just comes to me. Yasmin was interesting because, you know, she talk like this and it's the filter and all that. And people would comment, you sound just like my aunt, or you sound just like my cousin. This accent I had never heard before. I don't have anyone in my family. I've never come across anyone that looked or spoke like Yasmin did. So when I read those comments, I was like, wow, like you nailed it without even realizing you were nailing something. That's the only time where I created a character that people say, oh my God, this is exactly how someone is. But I just made it up, you know, as if I thought this is what this person would sound like. So usually it's studying people, but that's, Yasmin is the one character
That's really interesting. It just came to you.
yeah, I thought like exaggerate, try to make it like as English as possible, but you know, accent, you know,
Yeah.
posh, bish posh accent.
Yeah, your characterization is so detailed and so true that we all relate
Yeah.
to it. We all of us have aunts, grandmothers who were
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
at one time.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about having an improv class? Is that something you want to do?
You know, down the line, I could see myself, do you mean facilitating one,
Yes.
teaching others? So
Yes.
I have a teaching background. I taught high school
Yes.
English before I started the comedy, and it's always been a passion of mine. Down the line, I would love to create, I'm not quite sure what it's going to be or what it's going to look like, but some type of umbrella program maybe that inspires people to get their foot into either content creating. I have never taken an acting class in my life. I would want to. It's on my bucket list, but something like that where people are welcome to come in and do improv, practice that, practice content creating and editing videos. I don't know what it looks like, but I have thought about that way down in the future.
Down the line?
Yeah.
Can you work on non-Assyrian characters? Do you think that's natural to you, or it's more comforting to do people that you've grown up with, you know very well?
Yeah, I think I do get more self-conscious when I'm not doing the Assyrian or the Middle Eastern characters, just because in that way I'm truly now as Ramina Odisho acting. And I remember when TikTok was bigger, I feel like now it kind of fell off, but when TikTok was just up and coming and I was doing some videos, you know, it's audios tama. You get whatever audio you want and you act with the audio. So I did some of those videos and I think they did well. I could act as myself as well, but Ana Egit Parijanna, if I watch it back, I'm like, ugh, I don't like how I did that. I feel like with Yom, I'm like this, like right away, I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
But with other things, but it's funny because I would love to take acting classes. I would love to act just as myself and be good at it, you know, or even other characters. Like I've been interviewed in the past where people are like, do you want to do dramas, more serious videos? I love the idea of that. And I love the idea of writing for it. But the comedy thing just,
Comedy is
it went to
natural to you.
comedy and I realized so I'm like, stick with the comedy. You're good at it. People enjoy it. You know, stay on brand. So not to say that I won't ever post something serious. You know, I could do that down the line. But there's definitely a sense of comfort in the Middle Eastern, the Assyrian characters, because it's my lived experiences. I know them best that way, and it translates, you know?
Speaking of you being a teacher in the past, how did your students receive you? Did they ever have a glimpse of how funny you were?
Oh, yeah. There were pros and cons to the way that I taught. I taught in schools where children had rougher backgrounds and some students were not invested. They didn't do their homework. So I was always that teacher that came off very friendly. I was funny. You know, I always say that maybe stand-up comedy is easier for me because every day I walked into that classroom, I felt like I was performing for the students, you know? So they definitely knew I was funny, but I was the caring, the fair, the funny, the, you know, be my friend, I care for you and I want you to do well in school, so then maybe they will start caring about what I think, or, you know, they don't want to disappoint me. And mostly that's what happened with a lot of the students that would never do their homework. They'd be like, okay, Miss Odisho, like, can you help me with this? Like now, oh, now they're picking up the pencil and they're working. So I say pros and cons because I came off that way, but then you would have teachers say, don't smile at the students on the first day. And I understood what they meant, because when I'm ha 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 with them, and then I'm like, okay, guys, now time to work. They're like, nah, Miss Odisho, come on. We didn't gotta work, right? We could have fun.
Take you seriously.
They don't take me seriously, yeah. So there were moments where I was like, okay, I think it's my fault. You know, I'm too relaxed with them. But it's so funny you mentioned my students. That's the most I miss about teaching, is my relationship with the students. One of my students said to me, oh, Miss Odisho, you're TikTok famous, all these followers, and not one guy is talking to you? And I was like, he was right. But it was so funny because, first of all, completely inappropriate, right? Your students shouldn't be asking you about your dating life, but it's just, they would say the funniest things. So it got a little tricky by the end of it because they saw I was a very public figure. And we started off by saying, my videos are very PG and G-rated, you know? They're clean, but still.
I am so grateful for that. Thank you for that.
It's refreshing, right?
Yes, it is.
I know.
In
I
today's
take pride
world
in it.
where I mean, you watch all the stand-up comedians,
Yes.
and you can't have you have to put your children away,
Right.
and not. And
Right.
yours is so refreshing.
Thank
and
you. I
so
appreciate that.
Family oriented.
Thank you. You know, I will say though, tomorrow, I kept my mom at home this time. I said, Mom, ati push betha lapan nakhpan qamach. You know, I want to start to push the envelope a little bit, because I do think it's important in comedy too to push the envelope without being vulgar, though, you know, to do it in a classy way. But there are topics that I think, especially as Surai, and I want to start to push the envelope a little bit, you know, maybe I'll swear here and there. Tomorrow's 18 and older, so I know there are not going to be any children there. But maybe the nanas are going to be like, ay, Myla, before she would never do it. So I don't know, I might have some chicaliate flying my way. But no, I think
as long as you don't throw them at us.
No, you know, I will keep it safe. You know, I don't have insurance for the show. But I do take pride, and people have said, you know, we love that your content is clean, and I take pride in it because it's easy to swear and be funny, you know, and be vulgar and be funny. But I think it's harder when you tell clean jokes and people are still laughing, and I think there's a sense of pride in that.
Well, Lucille Ball was one of the funniest American actors, and there wasn't a single cuss word. She was funny because she was clean and funny.
Yep.
And that's why
talk about facial expressions.
Exactly. And that's a testament why up to date people still watch her. She's a legend. She's a classic. She's a legend.
Yep.
And same with Carol Burnett and so many other older comedians.
Right.
And I'm very happy that you've chosen this way.
I will credit it to my parents, huh? Don't think I'm this innocent. I would stand behind that camera and record things, and she'd be like, erase it, Hadia. You're not saying that. You're not doing this. You know, it's like that traditional
slippers. Are you afraid of the
slippers?
slippers?
I'm so good at dodging them now, you know. But they were, you know, they are very strict traditional Assyrian parents. So they've checked me, and I'm an adult, right? I could say, Mom, you know what? I'm gonna post whatever I want. But there was that level of respect, and navigating this was new, and they weren't really comfortable with it at first. So I was like, let me not push the limits too far. Let me be clean about it. And you know, everything happens for a reason. I think it was refreshing for people to see that. And I was like, okay, Mom, do see. For the first time, I'm like, okay, Mom, do see.
Is there ever a challenge for you? You come across someone who's very stern and serious, and is there a challenge inside you? I need to just make this person loosen up a little bit.
It's funny.
Internal challenge.
It's funny you say that. You just reminded me of, I was going to, I forgot where it was, I think San Jose comedy show, and somebody said to me, so you know, they're kind of more serious. So if Lena بخكاكا لا you know بلكي أنينا like you know don't be upset about it, and and I was like, challenge accepted. Okay, I guess Urmijinaya, maybe they're more serious. I don't know. So I went out there, and they were dying of laughter. They were a great crowd. So I was like, I made the Urmis laugh, you know. So you just made me think about that. No, I think I'm a pretty good people reader. You know, and I'll be like, okay, I was serious. You know, so or sometimes I'm like, maybe he's just shy, so I'll test the limits a little bit. I'll say maybe one thing here, and if I get a smile, then I'm like, okay, open invitation. Let's crack the shell, you know?
You have fine senses.
And I credit that to
on
teaching.
people.
I credit that to teaching a lot, because every day I walked into that classroom, I had to see that student as a new student every day. Did they have a bad day today? Good day? Are they feeling okay? It's all in the facial expressions, the body language. That was every day. I mean, you really train those senses. So I credit a lot of my people, what do you call that? The connections I make with people, or being able to read people, I credit that to teaching a lot.
Do you miss teaching? Do you think you'll ever go back?
I miss the students. The goal is not to go back, not to have to go back. But I have been thinking about it lately. I feel like when I was teaching, I didn't wake up every morning feeling like I was going to a job. I was a ghita, you know, it was my passion. But when I started recording the videos, لأنه هموني قد مطيم بيثة ومسجلن أنا videos, you know? So the priorities switched a little bit. And that's when I felt like, you know what? Australia, مخبرة لالي, I'm gonna come do a tour. So I was like, maybe it's a sign from God, you know, take a step away from teaching now. And the way I convinced my parents was the degrees will be there, you know, the degrees aren't going anywhere. So in get قديرا المقريثة, I will, but hopefully not for any time soon, because I'm having so much fun doing this.
Wonderful. You talked about your goal. Your goal isn't that. What is your goal?
Weighted question. I do short term because I feel like those are more realistic. Bayan jaraban acting classes. You know, I think I'm a natural, but when I'm in front of people, balki nakhban, and I might not perform well. I know there are a lot of tips and tricks and a lot to be learned in the art form of acting. I would love to explore that, just to explore. But my goal, the one that always screams at me in the back of my head is to have a show, an Assyrian family show, right? Like, I think of My Wife and Kids or The Brady Bunch, and I go, why didn't I ever see my family reflected in these shows that we grew up watching? You know, I don't think, now I feel more so they're representing the MENA community, the Middle Eastern, you know, but I want an Assyrian family on the widescreen, you know? So if I could somehow, you know, educate myself in acting and the way that production works and fundraise to create a show where Yom is the mother in that show and she has a family, you know, we've hired actors and put on a pilot, just a pilot, one episode to see how people react. That's a dream of mine.
Do you have an agent?
I call her my antiger, Khaltila, Khalfat Yemmi. She's been managing me for the past, 4 years. It's about to be since I've been doing this. But I told her, you know, I think we need to start thinking about getting a talent agent, right? That will push me into these certain fields. So,
yes, that'll get you closer to your goal.
So recently, as of the last 2 years, I've been popping into our communities, you know, the pockets that want to see my comedy shows. But I think we're moving into, I am doing a new comedy tour and revisiting cities, but I want to move into, you know, getting a talent manager, an agent that will now push me into, here, try this gig, or try these acting classes, or hey, why don't we set you up with this production team? Who knows, right? And that's what I'm hoping for. I'm just, you know, كل من يقول على that's all I say. And I'm just going out and making people laugh, and that's food to my soul.
For that, you need more performances in English, so
Correct.
they can understand and see your talent and understand you. And of course, I'm sure you write your own material, right?
I wish I had a ghostwriter. بتخرج مني تنبل إلي ها كسلنت لي رابط. So I'm like, I wish I had a ghostwriter. Oh my gosh, how easy. Give me the jokes and I'll go up and say it.
Hey, you're funny. You can do it.
Thank you.
You do have
رابط
that.
زحمة إلى ذوق thought jokes, like new ones. At least my first comedy tour, I was like, I did it over and over and over and they got better. Now I'm like, tomorrow you'll see I'm trying new jokes and I'm like, they're funny, because imagine an I'm gonna be like, oh, what did I do? What did I write? So, but it's touch and go.
You can practice on us here. I go to Magic and Comedy Club in Hermosa Beach. And from what we hear is that Jay Leno, who performs every Sunday, almost every Sunday, there, when he was with, I think it was with NBC, he had a late night show. He would practice on us
And then
Hermosa Beach, and
That's
he would
brilliant.
practice all of his jokes.
and take whatever
And then
landed.
whatever worked, he would take it to
Wow.
his late night show.
That's what they say.
More than welcome to.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We would love to be the subjects.
I love that. And you know what? It's funny you say that. No matter how big or small the crowd, I always feel the energy. I've been to shows where I'm such nervous. I can't tell how they feel about me. And I've been to shows where they're like, just stand there and look cute. We love you. And I'm like, oh, then I'm funny, right? Because I'm like, I'm feeling the love. The energy is good. The vibes are good. لقيت تخمن bazit or balki, قيت khagana, like one of my jokes, and I've upset them, right? I know they're open hearts and they're just waiting to hear what I have to say, and that makes me feel so much more comfortable because I've been to shows where I'm like, oh, the energy feels off. Did I upset that person? One guy in Detroit looked like he wanted to smack me. I had to walk away. I was like, oh, this is kind of scary. So you never know how it's going to land with certain people, but I feel almost like I've cheated the system in the way that I'm going around doing shows to my fan base. I know they already love me, right? So for the longest time, I kept thinking, am I really funny, or do they just love me and they're laughing because they love me? But I went and performed a couple times to Nakhraya, like I told you, and they were laughing. So I'm like, maybe I am naturally funny.
No, you are, and you connect us.
Yes,
with
that's
what
huge.
we've known
And generations.
Generations,
generations.
and actions that we always know about, but you bring it out.
Yeah.
You bring it out to today
Yes.
on in a very funny and interesting way.
Hold a mirror is what I like to say.
Hold the mirror.
Because
Excellent.
they go, oh, I'm like that. One girl said to me once, my mom apologized to me the other day. I said, what? Right? She goes, and they're like, yeah, mom. Like they get to see themselves and hold a mirror up to our adatyate. Not to say that they're all bad, but maybe sometimes, take a step back and go, oh, okay. Maybe next time I'll listen more. Or I won't throw that second chikalta. Maybe just one was enough.
Romina, who is your favorite performer that you wished you could share a stage with? And where would that be if you were given the opportunity? Where would you
Favorite performer or comedian? Because performer, I'm like, okay, Celine Dion, I'll stand on stage with you while you sing I Love You.
You're a singer too.
Comedian, it's interesting you say that because I don't watch a lot of stand-up. And I've said this to other comedians before, like kind of like bin khapa, like, oh, maybe I should be watching more stand-up. They're like, no, because think about it. It's like if you're a teacher, you want to watch other people teach? I'm like, no, I kind of don't, right? It's like you're watching your own job. For me, I don't like watching it because izadian, like, what if I copy them on accident or subconsciously, right? I used to watch snippets here and there. The one person I remember watching as a child who I was like, wow, Russell Peters, an Indian man. And that was the first time I saw a comedian go up there and make jokes about their own culture and make it relatable and funny. And that, I feel like, maybe inspired me. I'll never forget some of his bits, but that inspired me in that, like, okay, so I can, we can maskhirah bazit ganan, in our adatyat, and they're beautiful, but we can laugh at ourselves too, right? So I think maybe if I had to pick, let's take it all the way back to my first memory and say Russell Peters. And wherever he wants, I don't care.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, hopefully.
You never know.
You never know.
A very nice voice, and
CD album.
And I hear it. Yes, exactly.
Thank you. I used to sing in church choir. My sister, though, every time people say you have a good voice, I'm like, no, but you should hear my sister. My sister's like that powerhouse voice. I'm like, Disney princess, light, head voice. But no, it all started in church choir, and music is a huge part of our lives, and I sing all the time.
Do you think you're going to continue that?
I would love to.
Part of your.
I would love to. I've never taken it seriously. I think like nobody's ever been like, "Hey, do you want to?" Well, they have. They say, "Can you do a church album already? Can you do a church CD album?" But in terms of like American, speaking or singing in English, nobody's ever like approached me about something like that. But I'd love to. It's not off the books. That's another thing that brings joy to me is using my voice and singing. But the Yasmin song was fun.
It's fun.
Super silly, but like that was a fun experience.
It's really interesting and unique.
Yeah.
And comedy and music combined. It's just really fun. We haven't had that among Assyrians that I know of.
Well, what are they? The Usher drama group, the why you care. I feel like that's a perfect fusion of the music and comedy. They're the OGs in my head. Samir Bahi and gang.
Ramina, at the end of our talk, you are, I am sure, as all of us are, multidimensional. When you're not funny and you are yourself in your solitude, in your room, what would you like to tell our audience about who Ramina is beyond her humor?
Get ready. You know the faces, the drama emoji, the smiling and the sad, the two masks together. Not to be so dramatic, but I can be very serious, and I do have those. You know, it's like what happens during the quiet times when the camera's off, right? It's draining sometimes to be like this all the time and make people laugh. It's food for my soul, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I'm like, oh, can I have somebody to make me laugh, you know? At this point in my life, I joke about this all the time, I'm very single. And so of course you know, my sister recently got married and has a kid now. So it's the personal things that start to come up. You know, you follow this career path and, you know, who's to say what it has or hasn't done for your dating life. But I do think about, I'm getting older. And I do want a companion. I do want to start my own family. So in those quiet moments, a lot of it is, what the heck are you doing with your life, right? Like, you quit your teaching job to do this. Where's this going? But it's also more like, okay, what about my personal life? You know, where's that going? Am I just throwing that in the back and not worrying about it? Is that a problem? You know, should I be doing more? Should I be going out? And so I told myself, come to a Assyrian convention.
Good for you. Hey, young
For
man.
my first time.
Look at this beautiful.
La young man. Oh, no, I'm 32 years old. The older man, please.
32 is
32,
not,
I say
is
10
not
years, give or
old at
take.
all. You're just beginning your babyhood. Don't say that. Remember, the character that you're portraying, this dress portrays, was from 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Today, 32 is a young lady.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Honestly, you look beautiful.
Thank you.
You are talented. You're good-hearted.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
There's no reason why you can't find someone. Actually, going
My mom
out
is wondering.
and getting known, you have more opportunities now. 'Cause everybody knows you. People fall in love with your persona on the camera, and if they meet you in person, you'll find the right guy.
I hope so. From your mouth to God's ears.
Of course. It was very nice meeting you.
So nice to meet you too.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for taking the time from your fun outside and at the convention.
My pleasure.
Meeting us here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.